Hello, the internet, and welcome back to another episode of Dbacks Dispatch. We are your hosts, Gabriel and Brandon. Brett is unavailable for today, but he should be back soon enough. If this is your first time joining us here on Dbacks Dispatch, you want to welcome anybody that's in the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, so please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. Check us out on Twitter, Discord, TikTok, Instagram. We're all over the place at Dbacks Dispatch, and we also have some written articles later on that go up at AZ Snake Pit. And if you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, just let us know in the chat, and we'll get to it. So, Brandon, this was, a lot more of an eventful series than I think any one of us really expected it to be. Coming into the series, all I kept saying was, just sweep. The White Sox have pretty good pitching in terms of their actual starting pitchers. Their bullpen's iffy, but they have some flamethrowers back there, and so that's why I mentioned the last podcast that I felt it's all going to come down to basically whoever blinks first in terms of the pitching, and this is kind of what happened, especially today with Zach Gallen. He just has not been it, but overall, this team was able to at least secure the series win. And I feel disappointed in the way things went personally, but I want to get your thoughts. At least we'll get to the bigger issues at hand with both the injuries and what happened with Cattell. But first, I just want to know, overall, in terms of the actual series itself, what are your thoughts? What were your concerns? What are your feelings about it?
It feels like the same thing we've happened all year. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's the same. I really thought that this was a sweepable series, especially the way that we played in game 1. I thought we played good in game 2, but Zach Gallen, man. I don't even know what to do anymore. Like we were discussing in our group chat, you could try and trade him, but for what? You're not going to get anything, so you may as well just hopefully you get lucky and he gets hot for a month in August or September, and that benefits you. But 4 straight starts of at least 4 earned runs is not going to get the job done, Zach. It's just not. And I really think it's what Strom said. He is the victim to his own success. I think he's not listening to coaching. I think he's doing what he wants out there, and they've told him countless times that's not working, and he doesn't care. He's just doing what he wants, and it's getting kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and that's why I made that tweet out earlier about maybe he just shouldn't call his own pitches, and that's something that you see. He kind of seems to be the only one who truly calls his own pitches. A lot of them, it seems to be a little bit of a give and take with the pitchers and catchers. But Zach Gallen is the one who, as soon as he gets the ball, he presses the button on his pitch com and specifically request a pitch. And we always heard about how cerebral he is, how smart he is about that sort of thing. But I think at this point in the season and the last couple of years, it's just not working for him. And like you said, Brent Strom brought up that he's a victim of his own success, and I think this is how and why. He did great in the first couple of years, with the pitch com and calling his own pitches, but I think we're beyond that point. And I think we can get to it, towards a little bit of the end once we actually talk about him. But we mentioned it last week. What can you get for Zach Gallen? I mean, a lot of people keep saying anything, but what is anything? I want a precise answer, and we're just not going to get it. We're not going to have any. I mean, no, people saying, bag of chips. Even at this point, I don't think there's a single organization in MLB who would be willing to trade a bag of chips for Zach Gallen, because you're taking on his salary, and he's this, the worst to the second worst pitcher in the league. So there's really no upside at all for trading for him. And like I said before in the last episode, like if the Dodgers come knocking for him, I wouldn't trade him just because I'm like, okay, what do the Dodgers see that we're not seeing, or the Rays? Like someone is seeing something that we just don't. But like you're saying, maybe it's just the fact that he's not accepting coaching or something. I mean, Riley Dunn brings up in the comments. They said I read that Gallen has called his own pitches since mid 2023. That's right around the point they began to struggle. And yeah, and
Yeah,
like
he
right around
hasn't been the
the break.
same since he started the All Star game, and this is probably why. Is he's like, oh, I started the All Star game, started calling my own pitches. I'm like, well, that's when you just been not good. And it was weird because on the broadcast, it was either the second or third inning. They brought up that it looked like James McCann was calling the pitches, and that's when he was pitching pretty well, was in the second and third inning.
Yeah,
So again, I don't, and but like you brought up, he's touching his glove, which means he's calling the pitches. So like Tory or because it's only going to be Tory. It's not going to be Kapler. He's not going to listen to Cap. Someone needs to tell him you're no longer calling your pitches, or like say like all right, one game we're going to let either Herrera or McCann call the pitches and let's see how you do, because obviously
yeah,
you calling your own pitches isn't working.
yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot of mixed feelings on this series overall. Like for the last two series wins, I feel like we've been a little bit down, and that's specifically because of a lot of the injuries that we've had. Like this team, it's like that Wario meme. I've won, but at what cost? Like they're winning the series. It's good, not great. So I think this team should be sweeping these teams. They should have won, these 6 games. They probably should be 4 or 5 games over 500 instead of 2 games over 500 because they're not sweeping. But let's get to game one. Some of the positives. Uh, Eduardo Rodriguez. I mean, he's had a couple of at least recently he's had a couple of weaker opponents, but since coming off of the IL, I believe you said that was June 6th.
Correct.
June 6th was the actual day he pitched as well. He had been on the IL since a little bit past May 14th. So you're talking about 3 weeks to about a month that he had been out. But since coming off of the IL, he has had 4 games against Cincinnati, Seattle, Toronto, and the White Sox. So truly just one actual bad team there. Cincinnati's above the D-backs in the standings. Seattle's fighting for that wild card spot as well. Toronto is in a lot of conversation for the wild card, maybe the second wild card. Since then, with the 4 outings that he's had, 2.05 ERA. He has been this team's best, if not the second best starter behind
So
Ryan
weird to
Nelson.
say, by the way.
In those 4 starts, 22 innings. So, about five and a third ish, 5 1/3, 5 2/3 ish innings. So he is pitching long enough to actually get the win, to actually make an actual difference. Um, he has he has given up just 5 runs, 6 walks, which I think is kind of key in this. In 4 outings, to give up 6 walks, I think is really key. With guys like Zach Gallen giving up 3, 4, even 6 walks per game, the fact that he's been able to keep the walks down, I think is key. And he's also had 22 strikeouts. And the only, I think, real blemish would be the whip. It's at 1.32, but I think in a small sample size like this, it's going to happen. But his season ERA is down. With how bad it was at the time, coming off of, or before he went to the IL, his season ERA was, I believe, 7.05 on the season, and it is down to 5.40. So not great, but it's starting to become slowly a respectable ERA. And I think as the season progresses, yeah, uh, we might see it get a lot better. But I want to ask you: is this who Erod is going to be going forward, or do you think maybe he just matched up really well against certain opponents? Like, is it the quote unquote easier schedule, or do you think he truly was injured and whatever cortisone shot or whatever they gave him fixed up his shoulder and he's able to pitch a lot better now?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think he was hurt because, like you said, his last start before going on the IL, um, his ERA was at 7.05, and that was against the Giants. And right now, his ERA. Hold up, I got so many tabs up here. I'm trying to find out which one it is for Erod. Whatever. But like, it's so much like like he has been our most effective pitcher, I would say, since he came back on June 6th. So like 3 weeks or so. Now I think that red start, he just like everything else that happened in that series, like I think he could have gone longer, but it was his first start back. The whole rain situation was pretty ugly, so that wasn't very good. But I don't know if you looked it up. He dominates at the Chicago White Sox. He's 5-0 there. He's had 5 starts. He's given up a total of 6 runs, and that was before this start. And he's gone deep into all of them. And he had, he, like he pitches well there for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but Erod, and I thought he looked really good in this start, and I think he's outside of like the one inning he had against Toronto. We basically loaded the bases loaded. I thought he's looked so good. When he was coming back, I'm like, oh great, there goes a loss every 5th day because I didn't think he looked good at all before he went on the IL. But he's looked really good since he came back. So for me, I think it is a mixture of he was hurt, but he's pitching well now. I think he has the confidence to know that, yeah, he is still a really good starting pitcher in this league.
Yeah, I think that's key because you always hear from a lot of athletes, they always get to the point where their stuff just doesn't work the way it had before, and they start to have, a little bit of a crisis thinking like, is this it for me? Like, is there anything I can do to get better? Especially, if you're getting older, like you don't know, what where your career is going to turn out. And he has 4 years. I mean, now I think this is, the second year of a multi-year deal, and he was completely useless in that first year, and he started off terribly this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that creates a lot of issues mentally for guys. And I know people say like, oh, well, they're getting paid. Yeah, but they're also competitors. They want to compete. They want to earn that money. Like, they don't want to feel like frauds. Maybe there is, a couple guys here and there in the league that just care about the money, like Anthony Rendon or something. But for the most part, I think most of these guys, they want to earn their contracts and they want to feel good about themselves. And when they, most of these guys play to win championships and to get into the Hall of Fame. Uh, and Erod, he came here because this team had a bright future at the time, and he got, decent money. It wasn't like he got 150 million that we've seen a lot of these guys get recently. He only got about 80 million. A lot of people talk about him maybe kind of taking a pay cut ish, to come here, and he hadn't really worked out. But I think seeing this and seeing this progress that he's making in 4 starts, I do think it's a really good sign because again, it's not like he's going 4 innings; he's going 5 plus. He has a couple of 6 innings, and he's striking guys out at a really high clip. And so I think that's, for me, makes it something that is sustainable. And one of the big issues that we talked about last year with him was just his location. He would just sleep things straight down the middle. And we just kept saying over and over again, like, if he's able to just play around those corners like he had been his whole career, he's going to be effective. And it seems like he finally has a lot of more control than he did uh, in his last few years. So, I mean, I feel good about Erod. I'm starting to feel more and more confident. I think I need to see a few more starts, maybe against slightly better opponents. But again, that's not to say that the opponents he faced weren't terrible. I mean, it's the Reds again. The Reds are, I believe, are 2.5 in the wild card spot, if not 1.5 at this point. Um, Toronto's a good offensive team. I mean, they have a lot of really good players up and down in that lineup. Like, the White Sox truly are the one actual bad team that he's faced, and he did what he was supposed to do. I mean, we've talked about a lot of guys like Zach Gallen. We talk about guys doing what they're supposed to do. Well, they're not, and they hadn't been all season. so far. They hadn't been able to get the job done against these bad teams. But you were out 6 innings, 5 hits, zero earned, two walks, and 10 strikeouts. I mean, that's a really, really great stat line.
Yeah.
And he put this team in position to win, especially after a kind of a disgusting start or a disgusting end to that Rockies series with the punt day lineup. The fact they were able to bounce back from that, win this game, put him in line to win the series. But the that unfortunately wasn't the only issue that occurred in this game. Josh Naylor uh, took a weird swing early on. Maybe it was his first or second at bat. He took a weird swing. You saw him go down for a little bit, kind of shook it off. Then got up and seemed like he was fine. His second at bat, I think at that point he really, really felt something jostling his shoulder, and he came out of the game. And then Eugenio Suarez also got hit in the hand, and I tweeted out for a reason. Like, if your pitching staff can't throw inside reliably, stop doing it. We've
Stop throwing
seen what happened.
inside.
Like,
Stop throwing. Yeah, just stop.
just stop. I mean, we saw this all throughout those mid to late 2000s Pirates team where their entire philosophy was throw inside, throw inside, throw inside. And how many guys got injured? How many fights did they get in because of that philosophy? I mean, look at Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt was on an MVP pace when they broke his hand, I believe, in 2014. He was on pace to get MVP votes. They broke his hand because they just pitched way too inside. And guys, I remember in those series, the guys would get plunked all the time. And I think in this case, I mean the pitcher, I believe his name is a young guy that we talked about earlier that is pretty good. Unfortunately, he just had a truly bad outing in this one. Um, is it Smith? Steven Smith? Is it? Shane Smith.
Shane
Shane
Smith.
Smith had a bad outing, but he does throw hard, and he did throw it hard inside on Gino. And as of right now, I believe they haven't made official what his diagnosis is. They gave X-rays. The X-rays came back negative, but we've seen already the X-rays come back negative for a couple of guys, and
Mm-hmm.
they just once the MRI came back, that's when they established like, yeah, something is broken, something is wrong in there, and as of right now, I think they're still waiting to get the results from Gino. We'll probably actually find out once to come back here against the Marlins
Yeah,
what
we'll probably
happened.
find out. Yeah, we'll probably find out on Friday. And they said that they have to wait for the swelling to go down in the hand before they can do the MRI. But Twitter doctor says that's wrong. They say that no, you can do it right now. And I'm like, unless you're an actual medical professional, please don't say anything about how that's true or not. Like, I get this fan base is infuriated with the training staff right now based on what everything has happened. But unless you're an actual doctor, don't say what they're doing is wrong because you don't know. Unless you physically have gone through it, which probably most of you haven't, you don't know what is required before you can do an actual MRI on that hand. But again, I get we're all really freaking pissed because they did X-ray on Corbin, he seemed fine. They did an X-ray on Gabby, it seemed fine. But then they go and do the MRI, and we're at where we're at. Like, I get the frustration, but things have to be done a certain way.
Yeah, and so I guess the question in this part would be like, what's the next step for this team? Do they go out and trade for? Because right now we're down a main catcher, we're down our All Star MVP outfielder. Now we might, if the bad news comes in on Gino. I mean, he seemed like in good spirits the other day.
Yeah.
He just had a bandage on his arm. Didn't seem like he didn't seem overly concerned. Nobody else seemed overly concerned. Could just be a really, I believe they said contusion, which is a bone bruise. But we're gonna wait on the actual full results later on. But if Gino is going to be out for an extended period of time, Blaze has already been called up, and they got James McCann. Jake is up as well. But do you think this is what this team is going to rely on? A lot of guys from Reno off of Flyers, or do you think this team is going to make a trade sooner than later?
No, they aren't trading. I because There are too many teams that are in that gray area that they could be buyers or sellers. Um, and to be honest, the market of players to trade is literally our us. We got Gallen for starting pitchers, we got Naylor for first base, and we got Suarez for third base. Like those are the top guys probably for those positions. I wouldn't say Gallen's like the top guy, but he's
Merrill
probably one of
Kelly.
the ones.
Merrill
Yeah,
Kelly's probably higher on that list.
yeah. But like Naylor and Gino for sure are at the top of that first base and third base market. Like everyone's gonna want them if they want to improve those positions. Um, I'm Blaze hasn't had a shot. He's only been up for like a day and a half. Jake's had two starts, but like sometimes it takes some time to adjust to major league pitching. So I'm not like gonna go like, oh no, Jake's not the answer. We don't know. Let him get like I'm willing to give him probably a week of like if they're gonna have him start every day in right field. Like I just like he got a hit today, which I don't know how he hit that ball. And he's played really good defense so far. Like yes, I know the season average looks ugly, but that's just because of how poorly he started. Like I think he's still only batting like 100. I think it was like 0.095 earlier. So I think the Geno injury would have to be like really bad for me to think that Hazen's gonna make a move to improve this roster offensively because I don't think that's where we are struggling. Like we need, I think, another starting pitcher and we need like three bullpen arms.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would slightly disagree with you just in the sense that this team is lacking bats. I do think they are just because of who we're potentially losing. Naylor, I know he was in this game and he did very good in this the game today, but we don't know what's going on in that shoulder. It could be, like those slow roasted bones or whatever, where they like those videos where they slow roast meat and it just like literally falls off the bone. Like we don't know if that's how Naylor is looking because he doesn't do X-rays apparently, but we'll see going forward. Like if it's going to be a problem or not with Josh Naylor. I mean, we've seen it happen with some other players, like with Corbin Carroll. He had that shoulder issue, and sometimes he would shake it off. He would struggle for a while, and it seems like he just wasn't able to catch up with fastballs because of that shoulder. And hopefully Naylor's fine, and he is, truly fine, and there's no issues going forward. But being down Gino, who just literally won the Player of the Week honors, and seeing him just out again, and at his pace, you're talking about 50 home runs for this season, 40 plus 50 home runs, and that's what we need right now. That's what we needed today, and so that's why I have, I'm not gonna say I have an issue with what you said, but I do think this team, because of the injuries that they've had, and because the guys who are coming in to replace those injured guys, I do think this team does need some help offensively, because I don't think you know Blaze. He's good in Reno. We haven't seen him yet, but do we trust Blaze to have the same production as Gino? Like Gino's on pace for like 160 RBI, and Corbin's on pace for about 40 home runs. Like Jake hasn't hit a home run. He hit one home run in Reno, and it's Reno. Like there, you just get the ball up in the air and he goes for a home run. But Jake just has no power at all. He's still hitting balls at about 75 miles an hour off the bat. Like he's just not barreling and hitting it hard. I mean, he kind of just looks like 2021 Gerardo Perdomo out there with his bat, and that's not a compliment. At this,
It's not. It's
it's
not,
not a
guys.
compliment.
It's not.
So I mean, I don't know. I do think this team has to make a move, especially like we talked about it before for DH specifically, because Grichuk is just not getting enough at bats to make him the everyday DH. Unfortunately, especially at this point, just when you're not getting as many at bats as you should per week, you just don't have the reps, and you're not going to perform the way you're supposed to. And Pavin, I know I believe he had a home run in this game, a couple hits,
Two.
two home
Two.
runs. So yeah, 2 home runs, and it bought him some time up in the major leagues. But we've seen how cold he is and how cold he can get for 2+ months worth of time. So, like he's doing a little bit better as of late. I mean, it's the White Sox, but even if you look at his average in the last 15 games, it's still not great. In his last 15 games, he's still batting 217. Last 7 games, it's a little bit better, 250. Again, not great, but he has 9 strikeouts in that time. It was 345 on base, which is good, but again, we mentioned the last time that's a little bit better than league average. It's not like it's otherworldly, like a 400, 380 or something like that. So still a lot to work on, I think, for Pavin. So we can finally say, he's back to the 3 week stretch where he was, Barry Bonds. So, but that's yet to be seen. But moving on to game number two. This was the game where we finally got the news about Corbin. Corbin's going to be on the IL. I believe it was a 15-day IL, but it's retroactive to when it happened, right?
Yes, which I believe. Hold up. Let's go to transactions here. So, retroactive to June 21st.
Okay, so I mean, as I will say, he did post on his Instagram saying, be back soon, which is a little cryptic, but a lot of people were saying 3 to 6 weeks for his injury. If he's posting something like that, maybe he might be back a little bit sooner than later. Maybe it's not as bad. Apparently, they did avoid having to give him surgery, and I think if they gave him surgery, they said that he probably would be out for months rather than weeks. So the fact they're able to avoid surgery, and I believe he just has a chip in the bone or something like that. They just have
It's
to
a chip fracture.
chip fracture. So apparently, they were just kind of floating around the bone or something like that, which
Sounds graphic.
yeah, once I heard that, I'm like, oh, I don't know what that means, and I don't want to know because holy crap, that sounds terrible. But this was I think this is a type of game that we expected from this team. I think this is the type of performance that we expected to see from this team, where they didn't score a lot of runs, but the pitching was able to keep this team at bay. And I think early on in the season, we talked a lot about run prevention rather than run scoring because we lost a lot of the big bats in the lineup. And I think this game was that. And I think if this is what the team is, I would be fine with it. Again, they just have to do it more consistently. But in this game, they won 4-1, 7 hits, three against three. Ryan Nelson was about as great as he's been all year. Like he truly just has the one hiccup. I believe it was against Cincinnati. And again, when we're talking about that Cincinnati series, that is one series that I think we all want to flush away and everything about
Yeah.
ever again because it was just an absolute disaster. But it's the same thing with him as we talked about with D-Rod. I mean, he went against San Diego, Toronto, Chicago, 5 innings, 5 and 2/3, 5 innings. And so far, despite that 7 runs in 3 innings that he gave up against Cincinnati. He still has a 4.34 ERA for this month, and he's only getting better as they're stretching him out. They still haven't let him go really past 85 pitches. We don't know exactly when they're going to start letting him go past 85. Maybe it'll be at the All-Star break or plus. If he's just going to get some reps in the complex here to where he is fully stretched out and is able to go 100 pitches. And he's just so efficient. Every time he goes out there, he gets through 5-6 innings and around 85 pitches. So, but in this game, I believe it was 60+% fastballs, if not 70% fastballs in this game. And we talked about it, I think, the last time as well. Man, when his fastball is on, it is so nasty. Like the amount of movement and rise that it has, it is one of the better pitches that this team has. And, we talked about J Mart having the best fastball, but I think maybe Shelby Miller and Ryan Nelson might truly have the best fastballs in terms of actual movement and rise on it. J Mart does have a good fastball, but, obviously it helps that it goes at 103 miles an hour. So he racked up the strikeouts in this game. He got 7 strikeouts again. It is the White Sox, but still, we've seen this team underperform against the bad teams. Ryan Nelson did his job. He got them to where they needed to be, and then we saw the bullpen come in. And again, be other than back is having some little difficulty. It was pretty surgical. Back is no runs. Thompson, Beeks, Murillo, Shelby came in and just looked so dominant, so disgusting. So and then the D-backs did just enough offensively. Ketel Marte had another game with a home run. He's up to 32 RBI in the season. Again, he missed about 3 weeks of the season, and the fact that he already has 15 home runs. I mean, he is going to reach 30, even close to 40 home runs this season if he stays healthy. So, count it for another MVP type season. Although I don't think he's going to get as many MVP votes just because, again, Shohei Otani's on this division again. So, and Ronald Acuna Jr. I think is still batting close to 400 and is just on an absolute torrid pace. So, a lot of competition this year in the NL for that MVP, but everyone else for the most part did all right. Perdomo had a hit, Pavin had a hit, Gurriel, just the only one who really didn't was Jake and Vargas. But again, that's kind of the unfortunate aspect here is that Vargas was hitting the foot in the first inning, and it broke his. I believe it was the pinky toe.
Correct. Fifth. It's the fifth
The
metatarsal.
So, in other words, the pinky toe on his foot. So, man, even our backups of our backups are falling at this point, and it's so infuriating. Man, like I don't know what to do. Like again, like Vargas was brought up because of that, and man, like seeing him go down. But again, I mean, Tim Tawa. The problem with Tim Tawa, he just doesn't hit, but man, he plays every position so incredibly well. He is fun to watch on the field. I just wish he could hit a lot more than he does.
Yeah.
But in game 2, the unfortunate big story, and I want to talk a little bit about Nelson just because how dominant he was. But the unfortunate big story that came out of this game was the news. Or at least when we were watching the game, Ketel Marte started crying. I believe in the pitching change is in the 7th inning or 8th inning. 7th inning, in between pitches, we saw Ketel Marte crying on the field, and Lovello came out to console him, and so was Perdomo. They were talking to him, and it was something that we could only speculate on. We were all like wondering like what is going on. Like, did he find out about Vargas? I'm like, I know they're pretty close, and Vargas, like, we talked about in a group chat, like he is a journeyman guy. Like sometimes injuries like that can kind of put, they can be a death sentence to guys because, they're not the main starters or they're just backups of backups. At his age and his skill set, it could at times be the end of a guy's career. And we thought maybe, I think we're all kind of hoping that's what it was, hoping it wasn't something more serious, hoping it wasn't a family issue, hoping that maybe he didn't pull a hamstring at some point, but the fact that he stayed in showed us that, like, okay, so it's not his health, and nobody else in the field seems to be shaking up. And then later on, when Todd Walsh interviewed Alec, and Alec found out from Todd Walsh that Vargas did have a broken pinky toe. And so at that point, it raised even more questions where we're like, wait, so Alec didn't know. It doesn't seem like anybody knew. It's like, what is going on here? Something is really wrong. But before we get into everything that happened, I just want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. Riley, Red Sox Nation, Corbin Barrels. Happy to have you guys all here. Red Sox Nation says, if they trade Gallen, no hard feelings here. We are going to get to Zach Gallen as one of the last topics. And Corbin Barrel says, Brandon called me to say we were going to talk about how Gallen is a liability at this point. So here he is. So we're happy to have you here. And yeah, I mean, Red Sox Nation is bringing up Tawas. Like, he is a fantastic utility player. Given time to play, he will come through. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the points here is with him and Grichuk is that they truly didn't have much playing time for the last few weeks. he is finally getting some playing time. So hopefully he comes around. I mean, we've seen the tremendous amount of power that he has in his swing. So, hopefully it comes around and he's able to show, this team what he has, and could be a trade chip. A lot of teams, they want utility guys. They want guys who are already up in the major leagues. There's a lot of teams that don't want minor leaguers, and this team is one of them. They're looking for major league ready talent, and Tall is a major league ready guy. And there's some people that I've seen in some comments and other shows as well bring up Jake McCarthy. If Jake ups his value in these next few weeks, you
Okay.
could look at him getting traded. But yeah, so coming back to Cattell, finally we found out from a tweet. I should have had it on me. I didn't get the tweet out, but um, we found out that a fan behind the D-backs dugout was yelling and basically saying profanities about Cattell Marte's mom. And for context, Cattell's mom passed away in 2017 in the Dominican Republic while the team was traveling in Chicago. So, I can just imagine anytime he goes to Chicago, there could be a little bit of that sinking feeling. And like, I know I've had it before where it is, you're in a different city. Like, when I've traveled, I always do have that sinking feeling whenever I get a phone call or a text message that I'm not expecting, where I get that sinking feeling of like, oh God, like what happened? What's going on? And so I'm sure already the city of Chicago doesn't have the best feelings for Guitar Marte, and to have just an absolute douchebag of a fan. I'll put fan in quotes because that guy is not a real fan, and we saw the
Well, he's
outpouring
not
of
going to be a
support.
fan anymore
Yeah.
because he
um,
can't go to any Major League Baseball game for the rest of his life.
yeah.
He has been banned from every state, not just the White Sox. It's every stadium he has been banned.
Yeah, and yeah, so guys, as this day went on, we started to get more and more information. That's what it was, and I think that's probably I don't know, like the most emotional I've ever seen Tory, other than when they
Yeah.
lost in the World Series. I mean, he was hurting, Perdomo was hurting, obviously Cattell was hurting, and it just shows how tight knit this group is. But I've been talking for a bit, so I just want to let you have the floor a little bit about what your thoughts were while it was happening, what you were thinking, when he was crying, and then afterwards when you found out the news of why he was crying. So, let you have the floor.
My emotions in this whole thing were like all over the place. Like when it first happening, like I really was hoping that it like he is close with Vargas. Vargas has been on and off this team since Cattell's been here, so they're probably pretty close. So maybe, and then all the injuries that have really occurred with this team the last month kind of hit him hard. But yeah, when we found out it was a fan that was literally chirping at him, I don't have a problem with you wanting to chirp at a player, but you need to keep it about the player, the athlete. When you go outside of that, for me, I don't like it's this whole mindset that fans think, oh, I'm a paid customer. I can say whatever I want, and there's nothing they can do about it. They may not be able to, but there is a clip going around where Tory is going off on this guy. Like he's like, long story short, he called him a dumbass. He's like, just stop. Like that is too like. And the thing is, at Chicago, there's a very little fans there, so everybody's gonna hear what you're saying. It's not like it's packed where you could say something and the player's not gonna hear it. There is another clip that was posted, I think, by Cam Cox from NBC 12, where you could see Cattell stop and turn and look back in the stands. Where that's where he hurt. Again, there's been speculation as to what he actually said. Like some of them was like he said, "Oh, I sent a message to your mom," or "Your mom named you after a pipe." Like there's been no clear, concise proof as to what he said. It just was something about his mom, which what the hell? Like come on. Like keep it to the player. You don't attack family. The fact is this fan probably looked up info about Cattell because this was back in 2017 is when his mom passed away. So this is not something recent. This is a Chicago fan. They probably didn't know. And like, all right, this guy's killing us. Let me find something to get under his skin. Well, you just like you if you were a baseball fan, have fun watching it from home because that's the only place you're going to be able to watch it. That or at a sports bar. You will not be able to physically go there anymore. Like this whole thing really pissed me off because it's just this entitlement from spectators that because I pay money, I can say whatever I want. And again, most of the time I'm okay with it. And most of these players, yeah, then Red Sox Nation, this also from the same clip. There's a woman saying, "Oh, it's okay." Why do I feel like this is like his mom or something? That's basically because the kid was 22 years old. And again, it's one of those things where they don't think of the consequences until after the fact. Like, my bad. And I guess he was remorseful. He felt bad. Well, too late. You just like this whole thing really really does suck for Marte. Like I just I'm at a loss for words with this. So I because he didn't play that well today, and I'm really hoping that doesn't like affect his play because he was on a tear this week. He was just destroying the cover off the ball this week. So I'm hoping that he's able to kind of just got an off day tomorrow, back home on Friday. Everyone, every at bat, anytime you see Marte out, you need to give him a standing ovation. You need to cheer him on. Let him know that Dbacks Nation, Dbacks community has his back. I also want to give a shout out to everyone that's really donated to the Dbacks Foundation as well. Like they've raised I think earlier this afternoon it was $10,000. People just donating in memory of his mom. So I think that's really great that we as a fan base kind of came together for that. But man, this whole thing. But I just want to talk about what Ryan Nelson did in this game. So you brought up that it seemed like it was a majority of fastballs. 68 fastballs. That's 78% of his pitches. Was his fastballs. He had 11 whiffs. That's 29%. Like he was dominant. I can't wait until they just take the reins off and just let him go. Because we are going to see him go 7 innings, 8 Ks, 3 hits. Like he has looked so good. Like he is like it sucks that the only way for him to get in the starting rotation was for Corbin Burns to get Tommy John. Because that we kind of talked about it. Like putting him in the bullpen is not a smart idea. That was not going to work. So, yeah, this whole it sucks that this is the big story of the game and the series was what happened with Marte in Game 2. Again, they still won the series, which is good, but kind of Gabe, you've really brought it up. Yeah, they're winning series, but they're not sweeping. So they're not really gaining ground in the wild card, but they're not losing ground, which I guess is good. I'm very mixed on it. I'm yeah, you're not out of it, but you're not getting anywhere. So what are you? Are you a buyer or are you a seller? Or are you just gonna be in that spot where you're gonna do both? Because I truly think that's what it's gonna be. They're gonna sell some pieces, but they're gonna add pieces to maybe see if they can do something. I don't know. This team is kind of frustrating right now.
Yeah, and at least did bring at least Red Sox Nation. Sorry, she did bring up that the team did lose ground, and they did, and that's what I mentioned last Sunday because I was very critical about the punt day lineup that they took out for that Sunday game, where I said yeah, sure, winning the series is good, but when you don't sweep, instead of going plus 500 games, you're only going up by one game, 500
Yeah.
plus 3 games. You're only going up by one game comparatively, and so you lose ground even though you're winning a series. And in this case, they did. Last night, I believe there were 7 games from the division. Now they're 8, and they were 2.5 behind the wild card. Now they're 3.5. So the loss, they're in the exact same place they were on Sunday. So 3 days go by, they win a couple games to win the series, and they're in the exact same place. And I think that's what's been frustrating for me this whole season and even last year as well, where they would come out with these punt day lineups and they wouldn't get the job done to sweep teams. And it's just really frustrating because, again, like you're saying, like we don't know what this team is. Like winning series is great, but if you win 7 series, that's 21 to 25 games. Like you're talking about an entire month. You only go up by 7 games. And if you get swept at any point during those games, like that's the entire season, or the entire month is gone at that point. You just lose any sort of progress that you really make. And I think this series is another microcosm, or if not macrocosm, of that. And so, when we get to the end, we'll break down the Marlins series. I think it's going to be the same. They have to sweep the Marlins. Like, it's a failure if they don't. But going back to Cattell, it was just, so like mind-boggling when I found out what it was. When I read the tweet, I was just like, is this guy's like, is this seriously what happened? Like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, at Chicago, they forced the man to go, into hiding because of the whole playoffs with
Bartman.
the
Yep.
Bartman, and go back and watch that game. It happened like in the 6th or 7th inning. I can't remember, their shortstop committed the absolute worst error, so Bartman was clearly just a scapegoat, and that poor man, his life was ruined because of that. And man, like sports fandom, I think it's always been bad. I mean, you always hear about Buckner as well, the way Boston fans treated him, and when they invited him back for, I think, a ceremony, he broke down in tears and everything like that. And just fan bases can be so incredibly cruel to guys. And when you're a visiting guy in a clubhouse, we see those clips when there's players, where the bullpens are, with just the amount of things that they scream at them. And
Yeah.
players are finally starting to get a little bit more action, getting guys kicked out and stuff. And I think one of those big issues is the fact that, one, social media, there's a lot more access to these players than ever before, and the gambling aspect of it. Like, how many times have we seen guys, I mean, even in our comments as well, we'll post like, oh, Cattell got 2 hits today, and then we'll have some jerk off in our comments say like, "Oh, he didn't home run, he ruined my parlay." Then don't bet. Like, if you're not able to, you know, to handle losing that money, then stop betting. Stop
If you
threatening
can't
people's
afford to
lives.
lose that money, you shouldn't be betting that money.
Yeah, and same like, I can't remember who. There's a player. Was it Liam Hendricks who said that like his family was being threatened? They're saying that they're gonna kidnap his kid. Like, these these words matter. People say like, oh, they're just words. Like, they're not just words. When you're threatening somebody, when you're tweeting at them, saying what you're gonna do with their family, with their wife, the kids, whatever it is, like that's an actual threat. You're causing actual harm to people. Like, it doesn't matter. They can't just block you. But in this case, the fan was in attendance. He was screaming. I could tell. There is truly no blocking of that. Like, especially in a place like Chicago, there wasn't many fans. I believe it was raining a little bit as well. And like I'm sure Phillies fans probably said a lot worse during the World Series run. But again, it was a huge crowd of people. It's really loud at a Citizens Bank. So these players could brush it off their backs because they probably didn't really hear
Yeah.
what fans were saying. And Cattell being at second base, like he probably didn't hear any sort of insults thrown at him. And in this case, he was right there, right behind the dugout, and with the sound being what it was there, it just became unbearable for him. And just, you know, Cattell has everything to lose if he retaliates, and that fan has nothing to lose. Like, if anything, he has to gain from that. And I think it's just, like you're talking about, an entitlement. They feel entitlement because, well, I bought my ticket, I did this, I did that, so I should be allowed to insult this person and abuse this person. I think it's just such a disgusting attitude. And this person, I'm glad MLB, came out and support and actually, had retaliation against him and banned him from all 30 ballparks. And I think that's what they should do going forward. Like, sure, there's going to be people chirping, but I think there's points where it's just a step too far where you're
There's a
actively
line that
causing.
you don't cross, and this kid crossed that line.
Yeah, and I think Red Sox Nation was asking about how is it going to be enforced. So as far as I knew, like same with stores, they do have lists of people, and they have people's on there and the security, like who is and who isn't allowed. I don't know if every place has some sort of facial recognition software. I mean, we've seen a lot of government agencies and the police use them recently, so it could be the case. But if not, then this person can never buy a ticket ever again. Whoever bought him that ticket is probably going to be investigated as soon, like it's probably going to be alerted as soon as they buy a ticket. But also, if he gets caught anywhere, somebody happens to catch him, his face is being plastered all over social media right now. So he's really easy to find now.
Yep.
And we know what he looks like. He looks like a Patrick Bateman looking MFer. And, if somebody catches him, he is going to, you do get arrested. You do get fined for that. So the enforcement is the threat of legal action in this case. So he's probably never going to go to another game again. And I don't condone violence. And I don't think that should ever be what they do in this case. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want him to get beat up or anything. Like that's just not who I am
No,
as a
like I
person.
like
But
I don't want any physical harm. It's over and done with. These are the consequences to your actions. You
yeah,
decided to say this, and um, and so now you don't get to go to a game. So those are the consequences. So you
yeah,
just
and I think that's something that we've just seen throughout, especially the last 5 years. I think, especially during COVID, it just, the word of the year last year, I believe, was brain rot. And I think, in the context of the brain rot, the way that it's used then isn't what I'm going to refer to now. But I think it's just like this weird rotting of people's brains where they don't feel consequences anymore. Like if you go to any sort of event, people will be screaming and yelling, walking up and down the aisles. Like if you go to a movie theater, you have screaming kids and teenagers throwing stuff everywhere. Like people aren't being treated with consequences anymore. And I feel like such an old head saying all of this, but I'm like, this is an actual problem, and it's a societal issue where people at times just need to learn that there's consequences to their actions, and they just haven't received it. And he seems like the type of guy, with those tickets that he had, and how he's 20 years old. I don't think he's gonna have a crazy good job right now, but could just be daddy's money. And I do want to say he is 22 years old. I don't want to call him a kid because when you see a 14-year-old black kid get shot and killed by the police, they call him, grown man. So if a 14-year-old child is a grown man, then this 22-year-old man is a grown ass man and should deserve whatever consequences he faces because he should know better. If a 7-year-old is saying this, and you blame the parents. If a 22-year-old is saying this, you blame the 22-year-old
yep.
because this person knows that this is wrong and they knew that they were wrong. And if you see in the clip, he's saying like, "Boy, I just said something about his mom. Like, you can't really breathe," but he's like trying to defend himself, and it's like, no, you're wrong. Like, you're a bad person. You're a miserable person, and people bring up freedom of speech. I'm like, freedom of speech just means this person isn't being prosecuted. He isn't getting sent to jail because of what he said, but that's
Yeah.
not a freedom of consequences. And the consequences is he
Yeah,
is banned
that's the
from
thing
major
that
league
drives me nuts.
stadiums.
Is people think freedom of speech. Oh, I can say whatever I want. Yeah, you can. Doesn't mean there's no consequences.
Yeah, and like even Mike Tyson has brought this up before about people saying stuff to him, and again, you have as an athlete, you have everything to lose. I mean, a lot of people made fun of Anthony Rendon for slapping that fan, but even I was like, go off, King. Like, go ahead and slap him, dude. Like, I don't care. Like, if athletes want to beat up on a fan, like, I've seen like a lot of tweets about it as well. Like, let give him 5 minutes, in some back room somewhere with this fan, and let them, take care of business and let them say what they want to say. But obviously, that's not really
No.
doable. But that is something I think that we have to be better as as a society. And the way the White Sox responded, they responded quickly. They put out a statement. They put out a tribute saying that baseball is family, and they stand with Cattell. And overall, there's a really great outpouring of support for Cattell, and this shows you that this person was wrong, and love, is stronger than hate in this case. And with all the donations that are coming in, and I also want to bring up the what we tweeted out and it is getting traction elsewhere about wearing pink for his mom. I believe somebody said her favorite color was
Mom,
purple. I
purple.
had
Yeah.
no way of confirming that really, but pink just because that's the color that's worn for Mother's Day, and I brought up and I tweeted out about wearing a colorful clothing just because if you look at Cattell's Instagram, what he wears and what he wears on the field is just so many bright, fun, colorful clothes, and he is just such a lovable person, a lovable guy. Like he is quiet. He is a reluctant leader on this team. Like he was never supposed to be the guy on this team when he was brought over. It was supposed to be Paul Goldschmidt. It's supposed to be AJ Pollock. He was never supposed to be that guy, and that guy role was thrust upon him, and he's taking it on. And maybe he's not as vocal as a lot of other people are, but he comes in, he puts up MVP type seasons. He doesn't do it in this flashy way where you hate him for the way he plays, like running the bases a certain way. He doesn't showboat in a certain way. He would do bat flips, and they'll be crazy badass bat flips, but he's never seemed to be the type of guy to show up truly, a pitcher, another team, or have any really issue with anybody. So the fact that this happened was just so unfortunate and so disgusting. And I'm glad that you know the league responded the way they did and everything. So I am happy with the way, I guess, with the response, and it's unfortunate this happened. Hopefully, it doesn't have any sort of lasting effects on Cattell for the rest of the season. Again, he didn't play well today, and with the torrid pace that he went on, we would hope that this isn't something that affects him going forward. But Elizabeth in the center chat, so I want to say hello to you too, Elizabeth. Happy to have you here. Um, Moving on to game 3 now. Uh,
What is
Zach
there to say?
Gallen.
Like, what is there to
I mean,
say? What do you
there's
have to
not a
say?
ton to talk about. I mean, unfortunately the offense didn't perform, but again, with how many injuries they've had, it's hard to perform. But I do want to talk about Zach Gallen, specifically about him being a trade piece, which some comments have been asking, like, what do we get for him? Like, we'll take anything, we'll salary dump, whatever it is. The only way I think that this team is truly going to get rid of Zach Gallen in terms of trade is if we get a kind of immovable contract, like a Rafi Devers type of contract from a team where they want to salary dump, they want to cut payroll, and they have a guy that's on payroll for the next 4 or 5 years that they don't want to pay anymore, Mike Trout, and this team, has a pitcher,
They're
and
not trading
there's
him with their record right now. Like they're pretty much right where we are. So I don't see that happening.
They could get a better record if they traded for a starting pitcher, is all I'm saying. Even the starting pitcher isn't the best. Maybe a change of scenery could help him out. But what do you think? I mean, you mentioned that, you wanted something for him. I countered you saying, like, I don't think we would get anything for him. But was there somebody you had maybe in mind that you feel like this team could
No,
realistically trade for?
I'm freaking done with Gallen. Like he's stuck in his ways. Like he's so cerebral when he pitches, and I think that's the reason why he's struggling. Is he thinks he knows how to get out of his own way when he's the reason why he's struggling. I truly think it is that whatever the team's telling him with his stuff, he's not listening. He's doing what he wants. I truly think that's what it is. Like he's just doing what he wants. It doesn't matter if they come up with a game plan. He probably was. Actually, I think I should do this. Like I truly think that's what it is. So I'm just like, if you can trade him, cool. If you don't, you don't. Like I'm not expecting a lot. It gets really frustrating. Like today, we start off hot. Freaking Naylor, 2-run homer in the first. I'm like, all right, let's freaking go. It was a great start, and then he gives it right back. That's it. And then the two homers he gave up to Sosa. One was a curveball that he hung in the middle at the bottom of the zone, and then he threw a fastball hot. And like, I'm like, you're giving this guy two homers? Like what are we doing here, man? So I'm just like, I'm just freaking done with Gallen, man.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't want to be done because I mean he's been here for so long and he's been so valuable for this team. But there's nothing about the way he's been pitching this year and the last couple of years that show me, if this is just a growing pain, this is just a sophomore slump. I think this is just who he kind of is. Like, I don't see this improving at all. And I would love to be wrong. If he has a Arietta type of second half, you know, this team is winning the World
Well,
Series. Like,
yeah,
but
like that's
again,
a flip of
it's
the
a
switch to me.
yeah.
Like
That's
I just
kind of the
don't see
problem
that.
with me is just that he would have to get a couple of miles on that fastball, and he would have to magically get pinpoint accuracy. That curveball would have to be just it would have to all be pinpoint accuracy and a little up, the velocity going up a little bit, and maybe during the All-Star break something gets figured out there. I would hope. I mean, they have about a week off. I don't know. I don't know what to do about Zach Gallen other than DFAing him, which I don't think this team is going to do because they don't have anybody to replace them because of the replacement of Christian Mena. Christian Mena isn't necessarily ready yet. Yumin Lin isn't ready yet. Like, we have minor leaguers that could be great next year, but not this year. These guys aren't ready, and we've seen what happens when you rush certain starting pitchers. But Corbin Barrels here is saying don't give Gallen a qualifying offer. So I believe this year should be a little bit over 20 million for that qualifying offer. If this team offers it to, so what qualifying offer does is basically getting you a draft pick in compensation for that guy. If they don't give him one, then they don't get any sort of draft compensation from a team. So let's say the Yankees get him, they get a Yankees draft pick, and I believe in the second round. And but the issue is if you offer it to him, he might take it. And you're talking about $20+ million for next season. And if he performs the same way, he's another, lead weight again. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think? Well, let's say, should they and will they give him a qualifying offer?
Should they? No. Will they? Yes. I think it's gonna be a respect thing. Like they're gonna offer him something. And Scott Boras is his agent, and Scott Boras is gonna find someone to give him well more than what he deserves. I don't think he's not worth 20 million right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Again, it could potentially change. He could be a flip of a switch, or it could be he's realizing actually let me listen to the coaches and do what the coaches are saying, and not have me call my own pitches.
yeah, I mean, he like I said, he has a Boris client, and Boris, for some reason, has just the best negotiating powers in the world, and he just finds ways to get guys big contracts that they kind of don't deserve. I mean, look at Eric Hosmer, that big contract he got with San Diego, and basically everybody else. Walker Bueller, I mean, he's been absolutely terrible, and he wasn't good last year.
Alonso has proved out to be pretty good for him though.
But it's a 1 year contract. I mean, he's had his hits and he had his failures, and we mentioned before, Zach Gallen went from a guy who was probably going to be in the range of a at least a $200 million range because of his age, and at this point, 15 to 20 million for a show me year. That's kind of what he's trending towards, and I don't know. It's one of those things where if he improves just enough, coming up, in these next few months, if he improves just enough that he shows you he still has a lot, I do think this team should give him a qualifying offer. But if he's still giving up 4 or 5 runs in 4 or 5 innings, you kind of just have to cut bait with him and not even, I think, give him a qualifying offer because he's probably going to accept it. And who knows what he's going to be next season. And, the windows could be closing, it could be opening. But I think I'd rather have a actually really good pitcher, a guy with better velocity like Mena, or even a guy like Yumin Lin. I know he's struggling a little bit, but he is coming back from military service in Taiwan, so he's not fully stretched out either. Um, but again, I mean, some guys are coming out to the in free agency. I believe somebody might have been Red Sox Nation mentioned Sandy Alcantara. He could be a choice. He's also not been great this season, but his last 4 or 5 starts, he has been excellent. He's looking about the same as he always has. So they could just do a 1-for-1, 2, 3 for 1 trade with Sandy. He doesn't have a huge contract either. But let's move on to the Marlins series. We're speaking about Sandy Alcantara. So
They don't have
it's
any
a lot of to be
comparables,
determined.
so we don't
There's
even know who they're facing yet.
Yeah, so right now, as of right now, at least on the D-back side, it's Merrill Kelly, 7-3, 3.39 ERA, Brandon Fott, 8-5, 5.49, and Erod, 5.44. Any thoughts on this upcoming series? Something you're looking out for? Do you think they need to sweep this series? The Marlins aren't as terrible as the White Sox and the Rockies, but do you think anything other than a sweep would be a disappointment?
A series win, no. A series loss, yes. I said in this 9 game stretch of the Rockies, White Sox, and Marlins that 6-3 is the minimum you have to do. They're at 4-2 right now. So as long as they get a series win or a sweep, then we're good. I said if you're 5-4 or anything less, then for me, like playoffs is like just just pretty much it. Just nothing more. So um, I'm hoping for a sweep, but I'll be satisfied with a series win.
Yeah, I kind of need a series sweep because this team is 2 games above 500, and without that sweep, it would be just 3 games above 500 coming into July, which is the last month of right before the trade deadline, and 5 6 games above 500 at the deadline. I don't think it would guarantee actual real moves for this team. I think they need to be closer to 10, if not in command of a wild card spot. So if they're able to sweep, let me just check really quick who all these other teams are facing. I mean, the Marlins just took a 4-run lead off the Giants, so we're not going to lose any ground on them, thankfully. But
So this
the team,
weekend,
so they're
St.
still
Louis plays Cleveland. Um, Cincinnati plays San
playing the
Diego.
San
So
Diego.
that one is like it doesn't matter really. Like we're gonna gain and lose ground on either one of
Yeah.
them. So we need to win. Like
Yes.
um,
Giants playing the White Sox, so you can kind of count not getting any ground on them. Dodgers are playing the
Detroit.
Royals. The Royals are decent. They're not the best team, but they do have a lot of young talent on there still. Hopefully, they can take one maybe from LA, and then the Rockies and the Brewers. And the Brewers have been on a complete tear. So this is a big series coming up this weekend. It is, even though it is against the Marlins, this is a really big series in terms of wild card standings and even division standings to a certain extent. So hopefully this team is able to sweep, gain at least one game again on that wild card. So coming in, Sunday, we're talking about them being 2.5 still behind a wild card spot rather than 3.5, because what you don't want is to fall as far back as the Braves. The Braves, I believe, are 6 or 7 games out of that wild card spot, and they have a lot of ground to gain. And the D-backs, they got to jump 3 or 4 different teams just to get into that wild card spot. But I want to thank everybody for coming in here. Corbin Barrels, Red Sox Nation, Elizabeth, who else? And Riley. believe if I miss anybody, sorry. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. Leave leave us a review, like this video, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Under the lights, the game goes down. Tears are a heap, but we own this town. Brennan Gabe on the call, with Josh in the back, bringing it all. Fastballs from the bats at night. 9 innings deep, we fight all night. Wins and losses, highs and lows, we break it down, yeah, that's how it goes. Dbacks, dispatch, turn it